the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us, where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground, holy ground, holy ground, holy ground.
This is Spirit Session Podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hi everyone, Katie here. This podcast is intended to inspire you, educate you, and most importantly, support you on your journey towards knowing who you really are, that inner self, that inner teacher. I am not a psychologist or a medical doctor and do not offer professional health or medical advice on this podcast. If you are suffering from any kind of psychological or medical issue, please do the right thing and seek help from your qualified health professional. Hey everyone, this is a really cool podcast with someone that's really, really special to us. She is sort of like one of the unsung heroes of our organization, the Shakti School. When you sign up for our school, we have something called office hours, where you get to meet twice a month with someone who is an Ayurvedic clinical specialist, which is one of the highest levels of Ayurvedic medicine that you can attain. And we have this amazing woman. Laurel Odom is a clinical Ayurvedic specialist, Pancha Karma Specialist, a yoga teacher, and she has a degree in clinical nutrition. She's also, despite all that education, she still was like, you know what? I'm going to also attend the Shakti School. She's one of our level 2 graduates and now teaches in our women's health module, in our fertility and conception class, and helps us out with the at-home Pancha Karma protocols. I think you're going to really love her energy. She brings so much to our school. And so we wanted to show her off on the podcast for all of you guys. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Spirit Sessions. I am here with someone that feels so close to me and so close to everything that we're doing at the Shakti School that it was a surprise to me as I was researching this podcast to find out that this person has not been on the show before because she's such a huge part of our school. We have the amazing Laurel here today with us, ladies and gentlemen. Usually there's one of you out there. Laurel, welcome to Spirit Sessions. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to be here. And I didn't tell you this before, but this was the first podcast I ever listened to back in the days when it was called The Ghee Spot.
Whoa.
2018.
Wow, that's huge. We had Meredith Klein on the show last week, and she said that her friends are like, we want the Ghee Spot back. And there, is rumors milling about that might happen, that we might have 2 podcasts, one called The Ghee Spot, legit old school Ayurveda, and then we'll have something else. Who knows? We may keep Spirit Sessions or rename it. That's kind of like Katie's dabbling into whatever she wants podcast, but that's so funny. Yeah. Welcome to the Ghee Spot / Spirit Session. So everyone listening, Laurel is our clinical Ayurvedic specialist here at the Shakti School. She is our resident. I think of her as Ayurveda specialist, and she does our office hours in level 1 and level 2. And office hours are really a place where we get to kind of open up deeper into personal questions beyond just the lectures with our awesome teachers. And so before we dive into that, I think how I want to kind of frame today's podcast is around what I feel when I'm with you and our friendship and our sisterhood that, we haven't spent a lot of time together, Laurel, but whenever I'm with you, I feel safe. I feel, that's just the word. There's this loving presence. And the essence of why I created this program and this podcast was that feeling that you get when you're with another woman And also it can happen with men, but I think there's something really special about this feeling you have with another woman where you feel like she's rooting you on legitimately from the depths of her being, and that she's also seeing you and loving you. And I think that just comes so easily for me to do with other people. And I think probably for you as well. And it's the feeling that you give. And it's that divine feminine to which this whole school and this whole whatever it is we're doing over here movement is dedicated. And so we created the Shakti School to be able to offer people this experience that is just the natural unflowering of kindness. And so I'm just curious, Laurel, like when you hear the words feminine or divine feminine or feminine form, what comes to your mind?
As you're speaking, the thing that's coming up for me is the wound is the way. Because for so much of my life, that wasn't exactly the case. I grew up doing a lot of sports and pitch a child, very competitive, like playing sports all year long. And what is that natural dynamic with other females right off the bat is competition. And that bled into lots of other relationships unconsciously as a, child, teen, female relationships, things like this. And it didn't come until I was out of college and sitting in a grief circle. And I started to really recognize, oh my gosh, like the way I'm judging and competing with other females is not the way that I want to be orienting to my fellow sisters. And I was in the sorority. I was the president of the sorority for a while. I've been in the trenches, if you will. Like I've seen the dark side. And from that just deep acknowledgement and feeling that pain in my body, that was kind of what started the whole process of, I'm going to start really uplifting my fellow woman, seeing them in their beauty, holding them exactly as they are. And Shakti School and this space that I get to hold in Shakti School has been a vehicle for me to continue doing that. And it's not hard. It's very easy. And I, as a person who's also been, historically like hard on themselves, I see the women come to our school wanting to do it right. And we hold this mudra all the time of here's all the Ayurvedic quote unquote rules or suggestions. And then here's your intuition and here's your flow. And everyone at the start is like, well, I'm not doing all the things that I've learned and I haven't gotten into this and I haven't done, not worthy. And it's really easy for me to mirror, like, we're not going to be more worthy if we get this whole checklist done. It's remembering that you already are holy and worthy and just holding space for that. And I feel like that's the greatest gift. And, we remember the first cause of disease in Ayurveda is forgetting our true nature is spirit. I really feel like at the Shakti School, that's what we're doing. Remembering Smarna.
It's like never old to hear the definition of health, the remembering of who you really are. I want to go back to something you said that I think is really interesting. I didn't know that you were in a sorority, and that word Soros, like that root of sisterhood. I went to college in Spain and there were no sororities. I didn't have the American college experience. And my brother was in a fraternity. And I know how close he was able to get with these men, and like they still are friends. And I think fraternities and sororities like harken back to these ancient rituals of men becoming or boys becoming men and these initiations. And my brother, they go through these fraternity initiations and sorority initiations. And, we can kind of glean out this positive quality to it. Unfortunately, as we all know, there's also that dark side, as you said, to fraternities and sororities. And in a way, it feels like the Shakti School is like this secret sorority that actually is the Soros, that actually is like the sisterhood. And in the sisterhood, like I always say that the yoga and the Ayurveda and the meditation and the self-help and I used to always say it attracts the weird, the wounded, and the wonderful. And the more I'm hanging out with people in general from other groups, it's like everyone is sort of wounded and wonderful. So I'm not sure if it's just, but I do think that there's this aspect of us, and maybe we can speak to this, your experience with this, Laurel, that the women that come to our school are craving that initiation ritual. it's almost like I still feel sometimes like I'm a girl who's learning how to become a woman because I didn't receive those initiations in any of the ways, whether it be menstruation or how you have your fertility or your menopause. Maybe speak to how you've seen these initiations, both inside Shakti School and just in your general experience, be really powerful.
Oh, absolutely. And non-existent. And Shakti School brought that forth for me. As you know, I was in the Ayurveda field for a long time before coming to Shakti School, which is hilarious. Like, I'm 33. I got into that when I was 21. I feel like saying that is like very humbly, like still very much a baby.
Yeah, me too.
But Shakti School was that first place of, how do we honor the womb cycle? How do we honor this initiation into menstruation, motherhood, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and all of the different iterations of how that plays out? And for so many women, there are these traumas, pains, secret experiences that they're holding within their day-to-day. We have a class on miscarriage in level 2. We talk about fertility. We talk about things that bring up a lot of emotion. There's a reason we have to wait till the middle of level 1 to even start having that conversation, because there's so much prana memory stored there. And for me, Shakti School is the first time where we started to say, okay, let's look at the moon cycle. Let's look at these cycles within our womanly experience. How do we honor them? How do we ritualize them? And make it like a part where we can be heard and held by one another. And I see that a lot coming through our school, is lots of people put together women's circles and so that we can be heard and seen in that as well. I did that too with my friend Erica Snyder, fellow level 2 Shakti grad. We put together a feminine form sexual embodiment course for teen girls, because there's so much basic stuff that it's like, why aren't we learning about what our ovulation looks like, as opposed to don't have sex ever? Why don't we pay attention to, like, here's when you're fertile and here's how to pay attention to this? I think that that's a great beauty and uncovering that we do within our school.
Yeah, I want to I love this sort of alliterative way, the sorority and now the secrets, the S's are coming through in this conversation, Laurel, and like the secretive nature. So everything that, like, in a way, I'm going to give myself a little credit for being smart enough to know that I needed you and I needed all the other teachers, these other little geniuses, to come in and teach all these things that you guys are so good at. And selfishly, it's enabled me to like really hone in on what I'm interested in, and the mystical and the subtle and the sort of philosophical. I get to play that role because of you, and I'm really, really grateful. But one of the definitions of Tantra is that which is taboo and that which is secret. And I'm teaching tomorrow in level 2 on sexuality and what these ancient peoples, how they've understood our sexuality as a gateway into spirituality. And the reason that it was secret is not because it was hidden away necessarily. It was because by very nature, the feminine is that which emerges out of the spontaneous and out of the moment. And so with something like sex, and I don't know it in this lifetime, but I know you know it recently, something like birth or sex, we could add to that death. We could add to that every meditation we do, right? We could go as far as to add it just to being awake and alive, like in a Zen way. But the point I'm trying to get to is that when you are having sex, or when you are having a baby, or when you're dying, the experience in the moment cannot be predicted. And it's in that unfolding, in that mystery, in that very, very, very personal secret thing that's occurring. That's where the God juice is. And so what I'm attempting to do, and you get this so much, Laurel, is to create this place where we can have the same experience of that, which is, quote, secret, moving through our healing journey, rather than telling people this is what's going to happen when you have sex, or when you have menopause, or when you have a baby, or when you die, or when you have hemorrhoids. Like, we don't know. right? We can plan and we can prepare and we can have preventative health care. But at the end of the day, the healing arises out of the mystery of what created the disease in the first place, which is also often our greatest secret. So speak to me in your very, very robust and rich experience of working with people as a specialist in Ayurveda. How have you seen that secretive nature be both the disease and the cure?
That's such a big one. And why I love so much of we are adamant about people being their own best healer.
Yeah.
And we all want to look outside of us for answers, right? That's why I've gotten the chance to meet with a lot of people and have a lot of experience, because people are looking for help.
Yeah.
And more, it's you already know the answers, or the stuck places or the pain places. And how do we move into those places? I think I've seen it the most in Panchakarma and most in the body therapies, because you get to see energy move pretty quickly and efficiently.
So maybe explain to our listeners who don't know what Panchakarma is.
Yeah, so Panchakarma, it means the 5 actions, but it's the very classical way of cleansing in the Ayurvedic teachings. And oftentimes it includes some form of a mono diet, meaning like soups or khichdi or mung beans are usually included throughout the day. Simple, wet, moist, easy to digest foods. And then you're getting oiled up. Maybe you're drinking ghee internally. You're most likely having abhyangas, which is a warm oil massage, oftentimes with 2 practitioners working on you simultaneously. Other types of cleansing practices, there's a type of scrub and dodams and shirodhara, which is pouring warm oil over the third eye, and steam tents, all these things. And the intention is dosha. So we have these different energetics within our body that can move deeper into our body and wreak havoc in ways. And also ama, which is undigested toxicity that can move deeper into these tissues too. And it coaxes that dosha, that ama, into the digestive tract to then be flushed out, usually via some form of a purgative, like a castor oil purge, or maybe it's via an enema, something like this. So in this, you're also in a retreat center and removed from tech and just reading and going on walks and journaling very much with yourself in these places. So within that spaciousness, and we talk about that a lot too in Shakti School, like spaciousness is so necessary, especially in this day and age where it's like so fast and ingesting so much. Just to have nothingness helps us to process through all the things. When we're doing that in conjunction with the physical body, we can see, oh, this tendency or this memory or this habit that is maybe leading me down a path that's not so supportive, or that is really calling me to get deeply in touch with it and breathe into it and be with it so that I can start to mobilize it and move it through. So it's super duper unique to each and every person. But I definitely think that if there's the capacity to be with whatever the thing is, be it a habit, a belief, something that has happened within the body or spirit, that unraveling and that being with it ends up opening a lot of space and freeing up a lot of energy in whichever way that it comes about. And oftentimes the first thing is just bringing loving awareness to that and presence to that. And not saying, oh, you're a bad girl for doing X, Y, or Z, or like, you need to be more disciplined, or, you know, putting ourselves down. It's first, as we say, it's like bringing it in for tea and putting our arm around it and saying, hey, like, I see that you're doing this thing. I see that you're wanting something from having whatever the thing is, or, you know, there's so many iterations. I don't want to like, even start to make little examples, because it starts to create this good and bad dynamic that I'm not so interested in. But just even bringing that loving awareness and presence is really like step one of all of it.
And for those of you out there listening, you don't have to go away and do a retreat. You know, we really teach you how to do this at your house. You can create a micro version, which is sort of what I'm kind of doing this week, of like, I'm going to eat khichdi. It's winter. I'm going to have more root vegetables. I'm going to have a little bit more oils and spices. I'm going to massage myself. And luckily I have a little steam tent here at the house. And I'm also going to do a podcast with Laurel and go on a walk with my dog and, you know, probably watch some Netflix later. You know, I'm just saying you can do like mini versions of them at your own pace and at your home. I definitely think the best way is to go away, of course, but not everyone can afford that. And not everyone can get away from the karma of their current moment. And so these like do it yourself practices are available as well. I'm curious, maybe sharing with our listeners just how you got into Ayurveda and how you found us later on.
Yeah. And I want to just piggyback on what you said. And another reason I just love how we're meeting people where they're at as like modern day humans. And that's my greatest interest too, especially as a mother of a 2-year-old. It's like, no, you get it when you can, and we bless it up and we bring gratitude into everything else when we can as well. And it's going to be messy. That sounds really like a sweet week though, Katie.
Yeah.
So my path to Ayurveda, when I was in college, I was studying clinical nutrition. And I should even go back further than that. I was raised in Northern California by parents who had me outside a lot. And that was kind of like my temple was nature and going on family hikes and going up into the Sierra Nevadas, just being in these elements. And I've always had a great reverence for nature. I remember just like sitting at the camellia bush at my first home as a child and sitting with the flowers and just staring at them. And I've always just really found great solace in nature. So life happens as it does. I take on clinical nutrition as my major in college. And I got to the end of it and was so empty and so disconnected and so lost, and was just like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't want to work in a hospital. I feel like this isn't meeting, like I've been around women who've had eating disorders, and I shouldn't even say eating disorders, but yes, some, but generally disordered eating, and also just like being a female in college culture as well. You told a story in class last week about eating pizza and that being liberating for you. And as you were sharing that story, I was reminded of a time when I got pizza with girlfriends in college, and everyone was just eating the cheese off the top and not eating the bread. And that was my first way of being like, oh, like that's like how like healthy girls eat pizza. It was like the opposite of your very like liberated experience. Just being in that culture and then being in clinical nutrition as well, it was like that was just magnified even more, because once again, you're getting into rules and the ways that things should be. And it's very much a one size fits all approach. During that time, I had a cultural nutrition class, and one of the projects was to choose a different place in the world and do a project on it. And India was the one that I was assigned. And so I learned about Ayurveda.
Wow.
That was the first little breadcrumb, but was like, oh, this is super cool, but I got to finish my degree, and this is what you do. And I'm going to become a registered dietitian, and this is the path you take. And got done with college and was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And all this time yoga had been in my life. I started doing yoga when I was a senior in high school. I tore my ACL as a junior in high school before a summer filled with college showcase tournaments. I was playing soccer, and this was what I wanted to do with my life. And that was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, like I need something else. And my mom started doing yoga. I got into it with her. I remember my first class was like in my big t-shirt and shorts after soccer practice. And so during college, I was doing yoga the whole time as well. So moved home after college, was doing yoga, found the College of Ayurveda that was just 45 minutes away from my hometown, and went and checked it out. And I remember that day, it was just like everything was sparkly and rainbows. And I was like, this is it. It's not one size fits all. It's an individual approach. And they're looking at all different layers of us: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. I was lit up and so excited, and started that October. And that was how I got into Ayurveda, and just, oh my gosh, I was ravenous for it. I just did everything. I did all the body therapy courses. I did the herbalism courses. Anyone I could work with or assist in their practice, I did it. And I'm so grateful to have so many amazing teachers too. So many wise people who I got to be an assistant to, and just kept saying yes, yes, yes. And I'm so grateful I had that time too. And then when I wasn't at school, I was hiking or doing yoga. I worked as a house cleaner and a nanny for a family. And I would just have tons of time with these adorable, like 3 little puppies and 2 cats. And I'd have my music going, cleaning the house. It was very like Cinderella type of vibes that I had, just had this wonderful spaciousness. And then I got to the point where I was doing everything and working in the clinic and working in the PK center and the spa and supervising students as well. And the doctor program came out. And at the same time, Shakti School was really on my radar. I had found the podcast and had been referred to it as well. And it was one of those times, similar as to when I went to Ayurveda college, was like, my heart was like, you've got to do this. And it was these two paths in the road of like, are you going to keep seeking the next advanced degree and being ahead of the game and this competitive pitta spirit? Or are you going to listen to this heart call, you know? And so I did it. And I was so grateful because so many of the things within me that still needed a lot of attention hadn't been met yet. Sexual history, mental, emotional, really dropping into like the real raw experience of emotions, not so much just be a sattvic, peaceful human. And this is the way to, you know, this is how you do that. More of like, let's really get into like this excavation within your soul and your spirit and see what's there. And a lot of womb wellness as well. That wasn't really something that I had tapped into so much. And I know that must be a part of like your story in creating Shakti School too, because it's very much at the helm with the women's wisdom piece. So yeah, from there, here I am. It's almost 2025, and I'm just so grateful that I honored my heart and took that leap. You say it all the time, like I created Shakti School because I need it. I feel very similar and so grateful that I get to be tethered to these teachings, like the moon to the earth and the earth to the sun. Like I need the reminders all the time. And every single year I'm hearing these amazing teachers from our school. And I'm just like, yes. I don't think there's that many schools where you're like, hell yeah, sister, go off. You know, I'm in the car, just like, let them heal. Yes, you know, preach.
So I have to tell you so much in that story. I'm just getting to know you even more, Laurel. And like, we had you have to watch what you say too as a teacher in the Shakti School, because it'll end up on Instagram later. And I'm like, no, out of context, because we are kind of wild and raw and uncut. And I always tell my students, like, you've heard me say this, like, I do not have a PR ready script for you today. I am going to speak to you as I speak to my best friend from my heart. Like, this is what, you know, is just coming through. And there's something like so powerful in the spontaneity of like, this is where we all are. Just going back to what you're saying about the rawness and the womb and the emotional, and they're all connected, right? Like the second chakra is the realm of the emotional, and the first chakra, right? This 1 and 2, like the invitation we are giving the students is the one that we're continually learning how to give ourselves. And I think that's a huge differentiator as well, is this movement away from, and there's nothing wrong with hierarchies. Like, you're the teacher, I'm the teacher. There's a leadership council, if you will, around what we're doing. And I think around any good organization, in fact, nature has her hierarchies, and without them, things are chaos. And so the feminine without structure is chaos, pure chaos. And the masculine without the feminine is just rigid, and she can't flow, you know? And so really, we should call the school the Shiva Shakti School. But I will say, if you're out there listening, I got the greatest compliment of my life a few months ago. And it was, and I don't think I've said it on the podcast, and I think you'll enjoy this, Laurel, and the listeners might. Like, someone said to me, I have one of your books. It was a friend of mine that was moving from Charlottesville back to California. I was helping him move. He's like, his exact words were, I stole one of your books. I was like, you stole one of my books? Cool. I want it back. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, give it back. You know, very, very close friend, by the way. And as he's handing it back to me, I don't know what book it is. He goes, by the way, if there were one book that described Katie Silcox, it's this one. And I'm like, what is this book? I mean, how often in your life do you get this opportunity where someone that's your friend who knows you good and bad, up and down, hands you a book that is the descriptor of you? And Laurel, it's Strulium Elione's Feeding Your Demons. Do you know this book?
I don't know it, but
okay.
The title says a lot.
Feeding Your Demons. It's a book about a tantric practice whereby you invite the thing that you are most afraid of. You invite your depression, you invite your fear, you invite your anger to come and take a seat at your table. You give it, in fact, a chair. You see it. you visualize it, and then you feed it the nectar of your own body until it is fully satiated. It's just really beautiful tantric practice, but without being specific about it, this is the essence of what we're really learning how to do, to actually just be with the things that we are so afraid of and find so intolerable about ourselves. And I think my experience of my addictions and my afflictions are all ways of avoiding just being with that raw wildness that's in me. Mm-hmm. And so perhaps you can speak to that in your experience.
Oh, absolutely. I find, and I'm thinking of like different collages I've made for Shakti School and things like that, it's always softness, ease, openness, because there's that one who strives and wants to do so well and do everything right. And within that rigidity, we're limiting ourselves from the open, fluid, easy parts of ourselves as well. I think that's why I came to the Shakti School, because that's what I needed so badly. And I had done this work of feeding demons and things like this. Shout out to Kelly Golden, who was my first Sri Vidya Tantra teacher and prior yoga teacher. And that was the yoga teacher training I went through. And we did Vikalpa work and Vichara work. And Katie, you do it a bit differently, you know? Like, I learned how to get my sharp sword out and F those demons up. And at the same time hold space, but like light my fire up and like burn through, you know, like Bhuta Agni practice, like burn those ghosts up. I needed what you brought forth, which is sweetness, openness, grace. What are you really looking for here? What are you avoiding? Like seeing what's behind these things. So often the addiction or habit is what we put out of like the bad thing that this person's doing. And it's like, what are they craving? What's actually back there that they need? I had this teaching come through kind of in a similar way, but a little bit different. And I thought I'll tell the story because I thought it was hilarious when it happened. I was driving out to my friend Trudy's house, our good friend Trudy from Pavani Ayurveda. She lives out by the Shivananda Yoga Ashram, which is like out in the country. There's no service. So if you're going to listen to music on the way there, like you need to choose something that you like. So I always put it on shuffle because I'm like, all right, I can't skip a song. So if I don't like it, like at least something else will come next. So I'm pulling off onto this dirt road, going down, listening to like this 20-minute mantra song and starting to get in that very like holy yogini place. Like, oh, this is great. I'm going to drive by the Shivananda Yoga Ashram and have like this super high vibe chant going on. And, you know, I turn it up a little bit. Maybe my windows are down. It was summertime. And right as I'm like pulling past and there's like a parking lot full of people there at a retreat, the song that comes on, na 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 na. It's the motherfucking D-O-double-G Snoop Dogg. And I'm like, it was the best lesson for me because that's me. Amazing. They're both me, and me just trying to fit in that one box of like, holy lady, like super clean, super pure. Yes, and I want to get down on the dance floor. I want to shut it down. Like I love those peak human experiences. And I love R&B and hip hop. And if you put some Bay Area rap on, like I'm going to get down. It's denying those parts of myself, which is what I was doing at the start of my yogic Ayurvedic journey. I was like, oh, no. This is the way to do things. Like this, like really like clean and holy and like going to be the most clean, clear conduit for spirit to flow through, which that's still what my mission and what I want. And those wild parts of myself need to have space. To shake and groove.
I'm so glad you brought Snoop Dogg into this conversation. Like that is everything. Like, you know, I told students last week when we did the closing ceremony, we're talking about when you actually study the ancient teachings in their verbatim sense, you can realize how open-minded they were, how these original Gnostics or these original tantrics or these original yogis, like their mind was super vast and like the bright blue sky that they talk about. And in some of these old disciplines, they talk about who your lineage is. And we think about this super limited view that got propagated like 2-3 years ago, where everyone was like under this brain malaise, where we think we have to worship our own bloodlines only, right? Only use the herbs of your ancestors, only eat the foods of your ancestors. It's just like this. And I got it, right? Like people need their roots and they need to honor their ancestors. But Ayurveda says that's actually the first stage. And the second stage is you honor your cultural legacy. And whether we like it or not, Laurel, Snoop Dogg is a part of our cultural birthright. And then you go beyond that, right? You honor your spirit brothers and sisters, the people that weren't from your mother and your father, that are your soulmates, that are the women and men all over the planet from every race, from every sex, from every background, who are walking the path of light. And if we don't study the full spectrum of the open-minded teaching, Ayurveda and yoga and all this shit just becomes one more way to be better than and to be less than. And I just love that you brought in the Snoop Dogg, because we do our best to be respectful, but man, when we play funky music at Shakti School, people are like, what? And then you play the mantras. It's like, yes, and is the path of the feminine.
Absolutely. And how many, I've heard so many teachers come on the call and be like, I don't think I've ever taught for a school where we're listening to Woman by Doja Cat before we like, oh, let's get the dance party going. And that's what we do in Shakti School. Like, if you're listening to this right now, we do that too. It's not a like perfect, healthy lady thing. Yeah, there's that part, but the perfect piece, we are imperfectly perfect, and everyone on this planet is. And I love you bringing in the sisters and brothers of this earth, Katie, because yeah, we don't want to create more polarity on this planet. It's dramatic enough as is. If we can't see, if it's not big and in our face, like enough now, like, my gosh, like, let's meet each other from a heart center. I know this is going to come out after the holidays, but like, that's what is at the forefront of my heart going into the holidays. I've got all of my grandparents, both sets of my grandparents are still with us in their mid 80s. I've got a 2-year-old daughter. And I find that now, instead of getting into the stories and all that with family, it's just, God, I'm so grateful we're all here together. My mom, my dad, my sister, my aunt, her partner. And I feel that now, even like, you know, I see all the signs out and about, the political stuff. And I'm like, okay, my work is, how do I love that person sincerely? I don't have to, you know, be too much, but like, I don't want to create more polarity on this planet.
Amen. Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up. We're living in such a polarized time. And as yogis, if we really are wanting to step into being a part of the vibrational solution, it is so much about remaining calm and remaining loving and remaining open within everything that's occurring. And, you know, I always talk about that in Shakti School, that Thich Nhat Hanh, who's I consider one of my gurus. He said, if you're in a boat where everyone's afraid of drowning, like if just one person can remain calm, it can affect the energy of the whole boat, right? But if we all freak out, we're going to drown. That's like a tall order, you know? And I'll just say, like, there have also been these deep periods within Shakti School. We're coming up on our 8th year, by the way. Everyone needs to join. We're starting January 15th. We already have 200 women from around the world. We would love to have you. You get to spend a lot of time with me and Laurel. I would say, Laurel, you and I are really who they spend the most time with in level 1, me and you. And it's fabulous. And we don't know how long it'll exist, right? And what I've experienced in this 8th year is that this healing journey is very much 2 steps forward, 1 back. And sometimes when you think we're in the dark night of the soul, whether it be culturally or politically or personally, it's actually when you are cultivating those deep seeds of your highest wisdom that will burst forth tomorrow. So, Laurel, I want to end this podcast with this question to you. You've been doing this for a long time. Like me, we have similar journeys of starting really young. In your experience, not only in working here at our program, but in working with women in general, If there was one piece of wisdom that you could offer and whisper into the ear of the women who are listening today for their own healing path, what would it be?
You are already enough. That's it. You are already worthy, already whole. I think that's what I hear a lot at the end of Shakti School too. I don't know if you feel that too, of like, I love myself more. And those words feel really basic, but the actual living of them does not feel that basic.
No.
Seeing ourselves as that Holy Spirit that has come into this lifetime and into this body with all of the messiness and all of the chaos and everything that's happening. But like the fact that it's us, we're the egg and sperm that made it. And not only just we're conceived, but we're, birthed into this world and have lived this amount of time, and just like not taking it for granted and putting those beliefs in the way that say, oh, I'm not enough, or, and I see it. I especially see it at the end of our levels, as well as women are about to go out into the world and share what they've learned. A lot of that comes up too. And it's like, I know you feel this way. I feel this way. The fact that these teachings have found me in this lifetime and I found them is such an honor and divine responsibility. An incredible privilege. At the same time, we don't have to accumulate any more knowledge or do more things or do more practice it's really landing into the sacredness of this moment and being in a body at this moment in time. Period.
Laurel, we're so lucky to have you in Shakti School. I feel like you and our team and everyone else that shares their gifts and their teachings, it really has helped me evolve myself over the years to feel held in this, that I'm not really the doer or the creator anymore. I'm not solely responsible. It's not even really about me. I get to serve and I get to show up, but you're just such a big part of that. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you so much for being a part of today's podcast, but more importantly, a part of the Shakti School. And thank you for your probably eons of lifetimes of practice. And everyone, come see us January 15th. Laurel, thanks for coming to Spirit Sessions.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's an honor, and shout out to all the women listening who I've had the just blessing of getting to meet in this lifetime. Love you all so much, and love you, Katie. So grateful that you birthed this baby that is Shakti School into the world and continue to tend to it as well.
Thank you, Laurel. We'll provide all the information about not only the Shakti School and our level 1 program, but also about Laurel in the show notes. And we hope to see you in January. A big special thanks to Kevin Carlisle of Goodbye Gemini, who wrote this beautiful podcast music, and to DJ Juan Pablo Jimenez in southern Spain for mixing it and making it magic.